Chapter 5. Danny. I'm not nervous. I'm focused. I looked in the bathroom mirror and repeated the reminder, even though it was total bullshit. Nothing was worse than the first days at a new school, and nervous didn't begin to cover it. But over the years, I'd discovered that if I focused on what I needed to get out of a new school, it made me feel more in control and marginals less powerless. Instead of worrying about things like people judging me or where I was going to sit at lunch, I zeroed in on what mattered. For example, I wanted to go to Harvard next year. I wanted to go to Harvard so badly. I wanted to go to Harvard like Lorelai wanted Rory to go to Harvard. When I was in grade school, my dad was stationed at Hanscom Air Force Base, just outside Boston. My mom used to take me to Harvard for fun, and we'd spend entire autumn days exploring the campus, while the leaves were in full color. She fed me Lunchables in Harvard Square, and I fell madly in love. I'd never been able to put my finger on exactly what I loved about tea, but Cambridge was my happy place. So, yes, my only goal in life at the moment was Harvard. I discovered over the past few years that when everything in your life sucked, making an absurd college goal, your primary focus became an extraordinary diversion. Lacking in the friends department at your new school? Who cares? You need to focus on getting into Harvard. Is that volleyball player mocking you behind your back again? Who cares? You need to focus on getting into Harvard, and that bitch could never get in, by the way. So, what I needed from Southview was Harvard insurance, since I'd been freaking deferred and was still waiting on acceptance. I needed to maintain my perfect GPA, meet with a counselor to keep my goals on track, and make sure that the only thing admissions saw when they finally reviewed my application again was that I'd landed in Minnesota with my Harvard-destined nose to the grindstone. The focus of my first day was to solidify those important things and not worry about anything else. I put my hair in a clip and turned off the bathroom light. But when I walked out to our little apartment kitchen, there was a note on the microwave from my mom. The electrical in the new kitchen still isn't working, so come downstairs for breakfast. Wonderful. Last night, as soon as I'd climbed into bed, I'd realized that I still hadn't had a single one-on-one conversation with my grandpa. Aside from "you got tall," we hadn't really exchanged any words, which left me with this annoying nervousness about how things were going to be with him. Mick fucking Bosch. I rolled my eyes as I thought of everyone's attitude toward him. Saturday night, the way a table full of grown men had behaved as if he'd been Taylor Swift popping in for dinner, instead of an old man with bad attitude. Obviously, hockey made people nuts. I should even bother with breakfast. I grabbed my coat and backpack and went downstairs, wondering if seemed like a bad idea when my stomach was so knotted. Grandpa Mick was sitting at the table when I entered the kitchen, reading the newspaper while my mom appeared to be making scrambled eggs at the stove. He had reading glasses on the end off his nose, glane that should have made him look old, but instead just accentuated how intimidating he was. "Good morning," my mom said in a sing-song voice, glancing over her shoulder and giving me a smile. "How'd you sleep?" "Great," I said, not knowing what to do, so I sat down across from him at the table. "The beds are so comfy, right?" she said, sounding like a Disney princess with her happy breathlessness. "The comfiest," I muttered, pulling my phone out of my pocket. "You don't like the bed?" I looked across the table, taken aback by the quiet rasp of his voice and the way it hadn't sounded like a question at all, and Grandpa Mitch was watching me with his eyes narrowed. No, I do," I stammered, shrugging and adding, "It's great, because I can get a different bed." He pulled off the readers and said, "You need softer, or what? What is a bed again?" I felt like I was under the harsh lights of an interrogation room, as my grandfather looked at me like LD murdered. Someone, wanted to know where the body was buried. "No, really, I love the bed." "Oh." He crossed his arms over his big chest, giving me hardcore direct eye contact, then said, Today's a blackout. What? He gave my bulky sweater a chin nod. At school, the kids are wearing all black because it's rivalry week, starting with Simile. Oh, I crossed my arms and said, I'm just going to wear this, but thanks. The thick, warm wool of my fisherman sweater seemed more important than school spirit. You sure that's wise? I thought he meant it as a question, but there was a period at the end of his statement. What was happening? It's warm and I don't even know what a simile is. So, yes. It's perfect. Donnie, my mom said, it's rivalry week. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to wear black today? Oh well, if it's rivalry week. I knew my mom meant it in the best way. She knew how much I loathed first days of school, so she was more concerned about me fitting in than anything else. But the truth of the matter was that I knew all the rules of fitting in at a new school. I could write the damn rule book. Rule number 1, it's not about fitting in. It's about blending. Be invisible. That wasn't me being melodramatic. It was me knowing how to survive. As a new student, you need to be relatively in style so the assholes won't. See a duelist dork and move in for the kill. But you can't be too in style, or it might look like you think you're cool. And you don't want to be ugly because the jerks love that. But prettiness can be perceived as a threat too, so it's best to be vanilla. To look like everyone else. To be utterly forgettable and absolutely uninteresting. Yes, I'm sure, I said. I'm too new to care about rivalries. Wearing spirit tweak clothing on your first day might be perceived as try hard. Southview should win, Grandpa Mick said, his eyes on the newspaper. Simile's got no answer for Zeus. I'm assuming you're not talking about the Greek god? I regretted it the minute the words left my mouth because I couldn't care less about sports. However, defenseman, he said to me with his eyebrows up like he genuinely thought I wanted to talk to him about sports. The kid backpedal hits like Cronwall, I swear to God. What's a Cronwall? I asked. Nicholas Cronwall, he said, his eyebrows scrunching together in disgust. Played for the Red Wings? Legendary checker? Now, I knew what he meant by checker, because even knew the Red Wings were a hockey team. But I couldn't stop myself from saying, wait, hits? Is this baseball? What's this Cronwall's batting average? Hockey. It's hockey. He managed to scowl at me while also looking confused by my stupidity. Like he couldn't fathom that someone might actually respond that way. I'm talking about hockey. Minnesota men and their propensity for dropping G's, I swear to God, are you ready to go? My mom asked, giving me a look that told me she knew I was being a pain in the ass on purpose. As ready as I'll ever be, I said, wishing I could just be homeschooled. I tried very hard to convince my parents to let me do online high school when they decided to divorce. But good old mom and dad were adamant that the things you learn socially are just as important as what you learn in your textbooks. Sure, I thought. It's super important for me as a senior to continually relearn that I hate high school. My mom chattered the entire drive to school. I knew she was trying to distract me, but all I could do was stare out the window at the snow and houses while trying my hardest not to throw up on my own lap. My heart started beating faster when my mom turned into the parking lot as I stared up at the ridiculously large brick high school that loomed in front of me. Everything about it looked ominous, foreboding. So freaking cold. It looks so different from when I went there, my mom said, leaning forward to look up through the windshield. But it's a great school. And I gave you Alex's number if you want to text him, right? Alec never showed up the other night, which was a relief at the time, but left me still dreading the reunion. My mom gave me his phone number so I could text him if I needed anything, and I was contemplating sending something in hopes of getting the awkwardness out of the way before we had to meet face to face. Yeah, I said, reaching down to grab my backpack as the deemed day. To the doors. Can stop worrying, okay? Asterisk, text me as soon as you can, just to let me know how it's GeoJet. Okay, I said. But don't worry, It'll be great. I didn't believe that, but what was the point of letting her as stress? It wouldn't make anything better for her, and she was area struggling to bounce back from the whole failed marriage thing. "Till text you later," I said, reaching for the door and climbing woo. Only the air punched me in the face as soon as I straightened. God, how can it be so freaking cold? "Bye, sweetie," she said, giving me a wave before pulling away. I swallowed and headed for the doors, careful to take deep breaths in through my nose to try to keep the panic at bay. An anxiety attack on day one would be a nightmare, so I was going to make sure that didn't happen. Please, God, no panic attack. As soon as I entered the school, I saw the office, which was nice in that I didn't have to wander around looking more lost than I felt. But as I walked over, I couldn't help but notice the massive amount of hockey, enthusiasm decorating every surface of the school's interior. It was ridiculous. An enormous poster of the school's hockey team hung from the rafters of the high ceiling, and posters of individual players were slapped up all over the walls. I understood school spirit, but it was laughable that a bunch of high school boys were taped up all over the place like they were actual celebrities. I opened the office door only to see even more hockey signage inside the bustling administrative area. "It's Packer game day. Calm down, people. Can I help you?" asked the woman behind the desk, who was holding a phone up to her ear. "Hi, my name is Danny Collins, and I'm new. It's my first day," I stammered. "Well, good morning, Danny," she said with a big smile, her tone laced with familiarity, like she'd been expecting me. "You're a little early, so if you want to take a seat in one of the chairs, I imagine Cassie will be here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. "Cassie?" I asked, wondering if I was supposed to know who that was. "The student who'll be showing you around," she explained. "You'll love her. Cassie's a doll." "Oh," I said, nodding. "Good. She knows everyone and everybody loves her, so she'll be a great point of contact for you." "Awesome," I said, nodding again. I sat on one of the chairs and looked out the office window, where it was getting busy in the hallway. Students yelling to each other, groups walking together. God, I hated it so much, because on day one, there was no way to know who the threats were. The group of 4 girls who were laughing, with their pretty hair and perfect teeth. At this moment, they looked harmless. Nice, even. But they could actually be the girls capable of making someone's life. Hell, my life. And the same went for guys. The 4 dudes standing by the trophy case, smiling and looking cute. They could either be nice guys, of the ones with the potential to ruin everything. There was no way to know. No warning signal to give you a hint of. Danger. A group of dudes in hockey jerseys walked by, strolling down the hall like they were icons. They walked past the multiple banners with their own images on them, moving like they ruled the world. Which wasn't shocking after the hockey-themed dinner Saturday night. It was clearly the culture. Styles spare me. To be fair, I knew that I was prejudiced when it came to jocks. It was wrong to judge an entire group of humans by the actions of a few burr over the years. It had been my experience that the overconfidence that accompanied athletic successes created narcissistic social monsters. If mean girls were a thing, and they were, then cocky jocks were even worse, because they wielded ridiculous amounts of power. A jock could offhandedly say the new girl is hot, and even if he meant it in a complimentary way, it just led to all his friends feeling the need to contribute their opinions as well. "No, she's not. She looks like a bitch. Her nose is weird. Those nerdy glasses, though, come on." "Just breathe," I told myself, trying to keep the anxiety at bay. Watching the hockey players strut down the hall, I noticed another huge banner hanging from above. This one was strung all the way across the common area, and it had an image of the back of a hockey player on it, the name Zeus stretched across the broad shoulders. Ridiculous. I took another deep breath, slowly inhaling through my nose. "Everything is going to be fine." As if on cue, a girl with long brown hair walked into the office. She was wearing black leggings and a black Southview hockey crew neck, and she went straight for the secretary. "There you are, Cassie," the woman said. "This is Donnie." She gestured toward me and added, "Danny, this is Cassie." Cassie looked over and smiled like she was happy to see me, which was better than her looking irritated, I supposed. Of course, it was also my experience that the student who volunteered to show new kids around was usually either a genuinely nice person who liked their extracurriculars, or B, a control freak who was insane about their extracurriculars. Hopefully, she was the former. She said with a grin, "Do you have your schedule yet?" "Yes, they emailed it to me," I said, gesturing toward my pocket like she would somehow know my phone was there. "Same. And I'm in awe of the way you're taking a P in honors." "Everything," she said chic. "By the way, I love your sweater." T's very handburns rolling out the rug with Sally while discussing dating was better to keep my mouth shut. "Thank you," I said, wanting to smile at the reference, but knowing, because another important rule? Don't share personal information with the volunteer who shoos you around on your first day. No matter how nice they might seem, you don't know where they fit into the school's social hierarchy. One minute, you could be sharing with someone you think is friendly how When Harry Met Sally is still your comfort watch, only to discover 2 days later that she mockingly told all her friends that you are a loser who still watches old rom-coms with your mother on DVD. The less you share, the better. Cassie led me out into the hallway and immediately turned on her tour guide persona. She pointed out everything we passed, and I did my best to focus on her while being very aware of people looking at us. Just as she was showing me where in the cafeteria you could get breakfast, we walked by a few more hockey players, and one of them yelled her name. "What?" she said with a smile. "Can't you see I'm busy?" "Yeah, but we have a question," the red-haired guy said. "And it would be? Where did you go Saturday night after you left the bonfire?" he asked. "One minute you guys were there, the next second you were gone. And we couldn't help but notice Kyle was gone too. So we were wondering." "So don't do that," she said, rolling her eyes and kind of pushing him. "A little bit, but in a teasing way. I have no idea what Kyle did after the party. Don't be an ass." "Team not an ass," he said around a little laugh. "I just wanted to make sure you both got home safely." "Sure you did. By the way, this is Danny. She's new." "Hi," I said. "This is Richie," she told me, pointing to the redhead. "And this is Vinny." Vinny had a blonde mullet that was so long it went halfway down his back. As if that weren't jarring enough, what was with that hair? He was ginormous. "Wait, your name is Danny?" Vinny asked, raising his eyebrows. "Yeah?" I replied, my cheeks warm as they looked at me. Richie said, "Oh shit, are you Mick Bosch's granddaughter? Okay, this is weird, yes?" "How would he know that already?" "Do you guys know each other?" Cassie asked, looking back and forth between me and these strangers. "No, but Zeus mentioned her the other night at the party," Richie said. "What? You know Zeus? Stan?" she asked, her eyes wide like this was a very big deal. "No," I said, unsure why this dude thought I did. "No, I think he must have me confused with someone else. I have no idea who this Zeus person is," Richie said. "Yes, you do. He's—" But then the bell rang and all I could hear from Richie was ... Absolutely nothing, because it was like we were standing inside the bell. It was so loud. "Later, Cassie." Danny, mullet boy, smirked before bowing. "It was a pleasure. What the hell? ... And with that, the hockey guys immediately dispersed, leaving me with unanswered questions. How would some puck boy named Zeus have ever heard of me? "Okay, let's get you to class so you're not late on your first day." No one likes being the center of attention that way, right? "Oh, thank God she gets it," I thought. "Right. Okay, so I'll walk you to your first class, and then I'll be waiting when it ends to get you to second period." "Cool? Perfect," I said. "Thank you." But as we walked and she pointed out classrooms and hallways, I couldn't shake the annoyance that some hockey jock had mentioned me. Like, Bo Wu? I mean, it didn't make sense, because I'd literally met no one since I'd been here, but I supposed the tie-in to my grandpa made it possible. Maybe Richie's dad was one of Big John's friends. It irked me because I just wanted to be invisible. I needed whoever the hell Zeus was to forget he'd ever heard my name, if he had actually heard my name at all. Here we are. AP Lit, Cassie said, interrupting my thoughts by pointing to a classroom. That's Mr. Hunter, and he's really cool, so I'm sure you'll have no problem with him. Actually, let me help you. She grabbed my arm and pulled me into the classroom. Hey, Mr. Hunter, this is Danny, and she's a new student. He looked down at the piece of paper Cassie was holding out, which pretty much just had my name and schedule on it, and he narrowed his eyes. I tried my best to pretend that people in the classroom weren't looking at us, even though I knew they were. Well, it's nice to meet you, Danny Collins, he said. I nodded and smiled, wishing he would lower his voice and let me go sit down. There's an open desk in the back of the room. Have a seat. I'll get you a textbook as soon as the final bell rings. Awesome, I said, my face on fire. Till be back when it's over, Cassie said with a smile. I was torn between being relieved she was leaving, because she was outrageously perky in a way that made me feel like a non-communicative boob, and wanting to grab her arm and beg her to stay and protect me. Cool, thanks, I said, then headed toward the empty desk in the back of the room, where I would do my very best to become invisible.